always has to be a shot at somebody.
No.
They're never clean.
They have to run. That's the only shot they have.
They do it for 82 games. We're about to find out.
He already has shown what he's capable of.
Did surprise me. I thought we were going to hang in there.
This makes me think that we do need to be humbled.
I actually think you're the only one who deserves.
Hey, Buddy Manning here. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Garden Report. Drew Carter alongside. We're both fresh back from New Orleans. A trip that was too short. It was my first time down there. I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to, but I did get to buy a hat, Drew. It's around here somewhere, but it's retired for the moment.
Okay.
I don't know if you got to see it. I'll have to pull it up if you didn't.
Oh,
But,
is that the fedora?
Yes.
I
What do
saw
you
a tweet
think?
about it. Bobby, I think you have your own thing going, and I love it for you. I love it.
That's been the common response, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think I could pull that off, but I think you have established that you have your own identity when it comes to fashion, and you're gonna roll with it. And I like that you take shots like that. I respect it. You're like, you're Dion Waiters, man. Even if the fedora's a miss, you're gonna keep shooting.
I love it. I'll take that. I think that's been the common analysis. We're here on the Garden Report, and I guess we are an hour early. I kind of screwed up the time here, but oh no, I'm still on the Central Time. This guy here screwed me up in the chat. So let's talk about the first Celtics win of the year, 122-90 over New Orleans. I was worried about this one, Drew. Watching it, I don't know how you felt calling it in real time, because it had a similar feel to some of the other losses where they're up double digits, they're dominating for stretches, the starters are playing great, and then you get into the second unit and the lead starts slipping. There's a putback here and there. DeAndre Jordan came in and started dunking on them. And you're like, oh my God, they're going to blow it again here, because that's the way it's gone for them at the start of the season. 13-point lead against Philly on opening night, 17 early against Detroit disappears pretty quickly. And they led by how many in this one? What was their biggest lead?
It was late. And against New Orleans, I think the Celtics ended that game on a 31-4 run. So it was probably at the very end.
Yeah, they got up to like 14 in the first half, though.
In the first half.
In terms of it's slipping down into the third quarter there. So they held on. The bench kind of closed it out, which was encouraging. Simons and Garza and a couple others. And it wasn't a great New Orleans team, but the relief from these guys, man, was just so evident, because they needed this. They needed to just get this out of the way. If they started 0-4, it would have been panic time, especially against New Orleans.
Yeah, I was worried about the game going in too, just because of the scheduling aspect. The Celtics had played the previous day in Detroit. It was an afternoon, and I think afternoon to evening back-to-backs aren't quite as rough as, the back-to-back nights.
Yeah.
And then New Orleans had been off the entire weekend. They hadn't played since Friday when they took the Spurs to overtime, which I think is the best anyone's done against San Antonio this year. I'm pretty sure they're still undefeated, and, Wemby's looking like the MVP right now. And the Pelicans went into that game without a center. They started Saddiq Bey at the 5, which we were told was going to happen again last night. And he was listed as the starter on the lineup we got. And then all of a sudden there's Yves Missi. We knew he was playing. We didn't know he was starting, but he was out there taking the jump ball against Neemias. But all that to say, the Pelicans had played pretty well through their first two. It was, 2 games that they easily could have won. I think they lost by 4 in their opener, and then again, overtime against the Spurs. And then they had a couple days off, which makes the Zion late scratch just completely befuddling. No idea where that came from. Sound like Willie Green felt the same way. It popped up, during the day yesterday, again, after they had 2 days off and Zion had played in their last game. So that one was a head scratcher. Obviously, that helped the Celtics' chances. With no Zion, that is a team the Celtics should handle. Again, the schedule made it tough, but after there was no Zion, felt pretty good about their chances to win that game. And I was with you. There was a break where the Pelicans, I think, had cut the lead to 3. And I looked at Scal and I said, does this feel a little bit like yesterday in Detroit? And the feeling was similar, just with how the lead had been cut into. But thankfully, they responded. I think you look at the box score at the end of the game, Bobby, there were several standouts for the Celtics. You could look at a bunch of different guys and say he played probably his best game of the season so far.
Yeah, I felt that way about Queta. Minot obviously started, and that might be something. I guess we can talk about him first here. He starts this game, third different starter in a row after Hauser and Hugo Gonzalez started in the Detroit game. And this one worked the best of anyone they've done so far, I feel like. And Joe talked about it being matchup dependent because of how many wings the Pelicans put on the floor, and they want to use them for ball pressure against those guys and all that. So I don't know if this will continue, but I feel like it was so effective and he was so productive, especially on the glass, that you have to keep putting this one out there until it works. I mean, what's it, Cleveland tomorrow? That's tough against Allen and Mobley, two legitimate bigs, traditional bigs. But I'm probably rolling this one out there again tomorrow, even though there'll probably be some temptation to go double big or do something like that against the Cavs. This looked like their most dynamic lineup yet.
No doubt. I mean, you're showing the number on the screen. Plus 42 is an outrageous number. And Minot started this game with an alley-oop like 4 seconds in, which was great. I think a couple of the Celtics photographers weren't even in position yet, but shout out to Kayvon Morgan, who I think he was a point and shoot. Might not have even been looking where he was shooting, but he got a pretty good shot of this Minot alley-oop. And that set the tone. I think that's why I would probably keep him in the starting lineup, is because he is a tone setter. But you say the same thing about Ugo. I feel like, I feel pretty confident saying both of those guys will be consistent rotation pieces this whole season.
You're there on Ugo?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I think with what he showed against New York and defending Brunson 94, and then against Detroit and defending Cade. Cade shot 1 for 5 with Ugo as the closest defender. He was above 50% against everybody else. I just think his energy is going to make it really hard to keep him off the floor. And then Minot is the same thing. And Josh Minot played so well in this game there. And he had a really good stretch against Detroit as well, where he scored 10 points in a row in the fourth quarter, 10 Celtics points in a row in the fourth. So I just really like the energy that both of those guys bring. And I feel like they're both going to get a lot of run as the season goes on. It's been a little bit strange with the rotations early in the year, but I think that's just a feeling out process.
Yeah, they have to do it. They have to see what everybody has, and that's made it a little awkward with how big the rotation's been and how short some of these substitution patterns have been too. It's just completely different, and the play style of this team's been drastically different too. I think that plays into it. But there's just so many new faces here. There's so much stuff to figure out. Joe talked about them adjusting their coverages late too to keep guys in front of them. So they've had to tailor some stuff. They've had to experiment a little bit clearly here, and you do wonder how stable it'll get as the year goes on, because it's been pretty frenetic so far. The amount of guys, the amount of lineups, the amount of different things that they're trying on the floor here, and it's been worrisome at times the way this year started. Because I'll go the rebounding thing, because that to me, I mean, I just look at it and it is encouraging that in this game, and I know you didn't have Embiid and some of the best bigs in the world on the other side, but Misi's good, as you mentioned, and Queen's an intriguing prospect, and Jordan made an impact in there. It was good to face a team where you could actually compete on the boards and win a rebounding battle finally here. But I do wonder, is this just going to be something that they struggled with all year? Because in those early games, especially the Detroit one, which they almost definitely should have won, you just see how devastating it is to not be able to grab a single rebound over a 5-possession stretch, and just how that can impact the possession game, which is so important now, and obviously kill a run. I mean, the Celtics scored on 5 their 6 possessions down the stretch in that Pistons game, did more than enough offensively to come back and win. But there were 4 or 5 Pistons plays on the other side that were just easy putbacks and second, third chance points that kept the pace for the Pistons there. So this is a team that should be 2-2, 3-1, depending on how you feel about opening night and how that thing ended there. They probably didn't deserve that game as much, but the rebounding single-handedly flipped the Pistons game. So it was nice to see them respond to it.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, that was frustrating against the Pistons. I think they had 5 offensive rebounds in the last 3 minutes, and that's a really athletic, bouncy, big team. So you expect them to be toward the top of the leaderboard in terms of rebounding, but it's just not like that, right? I'm sitting there watching the game thinking, not like this. Come on, just grab one. It feels like the most simple thing in the sport. Obviously, really easy for us to say just watching it, but that was the point of emphasis. Scal and I joked about it during the preseason. It's literally the point of emphasis from Joe, where if someone gave up an offensive rebound, he's pointing to the bench because it's a hook for the guy who just gave it up. Bobby, it sort of felt like we were watching a Syracuse game with Jim Boeheim having a very short leash for someone who makes a mistake like that. But that was the thing. We heard about it, all training camp and preseason. beyond the pace was they got a rebound. No one is surprised that has been a struggle for them so far, just based on how the roster is built. So I thought it was very encouraging what happened against New Orleans, for the balance of the game, where that's a decently sized team as well. And like you said, Misi, I think is good. I like him. He was an all rookie guy last year. DeAndre Jordan was shockingly good. And maybe if you want to be negative, you could say that has something to do with the opponent, but he looked really good, don't you think?
That'd be one of the best on-air moments for you hearing that Joe story.
Yeah. DeAndre Jordan was on the street 4 days ago, and I don't know exactly what he said, but basically he was killing him.
That might have been one of my the best sideline reports I've ever heard. That was great. I didn't recognize him either with the haircut.
I know he looks completely different. Speaking of haircuts, Jaylen Brown is live on Twitch right now, so we're competing with him. But we'll keep you posted on what he ends up doing.
Should we do a split screen?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. He's got a couple people with him. I'm not sure what he's saying, but yeah, it seemed for a moment there like the same thing was going to happen with the New Orleans bigs just crushing the Celtics on the glass, and they responded, and I thought that was really important. We've talked about Minot and our guy, Neemias Queta. I think you and I are two of the biggest fans of Nemi probably on the planet. You spent some time with him in Portugal over the summer. I've always been a huge fan of his game, was expecting a massive season. And I was really disappointed in the first couple preseason games he played because he looked like the same guy from last year.
And he wasn't starting some of those games either. And you were like, ooh, what's going on here?
Right. Well, he got the rest day in the opener of the preseason. It's like, that's a good sign. That means he's, in the top 6 or however the Celtics are looking at it. And then he didn't look very good in the first couple preseason games he played. Totally turned it around against Toronto in the last preseason game, which for the record was really the only game the Celtics played in the preseason where the other team had their starters. So that was encouraging. And then I think he's looked really good for the most part now that the games have started to count. And that was one of the best games I've ever seen him play last night in New Orleans. He was patrolling the paint, protecting the rim, beast on the glass. The offensive rebounds were awesome. Really what the Celtics need is the defensive rebounds, and he helped them in that department too. But I was really encouraged from what I saw from Nemi. And, it's obvious. He needs to be terrific for the Celtics to survive in the front court. And I think we're seeing some really positive signs on that front.
For sure. And they talk a lot about the consistency, possession to possession, the responsibility he has now. Like Joe has said a lot of great stuff when it comes to Nemi. And it was toward the end of the preseason, I think after the Cavs game, I want to say, where he was like, you've been working your whole life toward this moment to become the Celtics starter. And I was like, all right, he's going to start here. And he has started all these games, which for all the lineup shuffling going on, experimentation, I think is a great sign for him because they could be trying to see what Garza looks like in there, or Tillman, who had a pretty big role on opening night against Embiid. And, the numbers, we were reading them before we got on here. Plus 11 per 100 now with Queta on the floor, -4 with Queta off. I talked to him after the last game here and got some of his thoughts on what responsibility he has in the rebounding issues that they've dealt with so far, how much he's feeling that himself individually, and just what the experience starting every night has been like here. Because obviously 2 years ago, he's a two-way guy, and now he's the starting center on this team. It's pretty crazy to think about. Here's what he had to say about all that. Feedback have you gotten from the coaching staff so far in your performance? Like, how often are they talking to you? How often is it coming at you like quickly, or are they kind of just letting you play through it? Like, what's that been like?
No, it's pretty much the same thing. Like everything they see, they're proactive on it, and like they don't let it slide for later. Like I'm just trying to take it in and learn from whatever mistakes I make, and we're all in this together. Whenever I make a mistake, they're in here to help me get better, and I'm just here to listen and trying to apply that on the court.
What were you guys telling each other through the first 3 losses? Like, was there a lot of frustration? Like, what kind of conversations were you guys having to turn things around?
Yeah, I think it's all about like staying even kill, like we said, but at the same time, we knew what we needed to get better at, and we were doing great stuff. Like I said, great first possessions defensively. We just couldn't corral it with rebounds. We were playing really hard. We were getting good looks, sharing the ball. Shots weren't falling, but we were still looking for shooters, still looking for our guys. And like I said, it's all about being even killed, because this league is it's a humble league. It will humble you, and you just gotta stay with it. Stick to the process.
Yeah, you said that a lot, that it'll humble you. Like, how has it done that for you? And what did you feel like you did well tonight?
No, I've been humbled a bunch of times in this league, and like I said, it's always about playing with your emotions and not really letting them to get the best out of you. And like I said, be ready for the next one. That's a good thing about this league. You always got a game coming up in either 1 or 2 days, and you fight to bounce back. I think we did a pretty good job today, rebounding, being able to protect the paint, going out there, running the floor, setting good screens for my teammates, and that's what I'm here for.
So there you go. I think there's some good stuff there, because he's going to have highs and lows, and he's going to have to deal with those. I think fans going to have to deal with those too. Like, this team's just going to be a little erratic at times this year because of how much they've lost. Like, I love Jalen's quote last night about we lost 4 All-Stars. Luke's one in my heart too.
Yeah,
I was
too.
smiling ear to ear hearing that one, but that's the reality of the situation here. He said, I wish Celtics fans gave us more than a week here. It is funny though, because some fans are obviously frustrated with the product in front of us through the first week. A lot of fans are rooting for the tank, which I don't get. And they're mad at us for wanting to assess it as a normal season and like they should be competitive here. I just can't sit here and throw my hands up and say, see you in June at the lottery day. Like, I'm just, that's not who I am. And I don't know how you've reacted to some of that, because I'm sure you've heard that noise too from the fan base here that thinks like a draft prospect is going to save them. And it could, but I can't believe that's the conversation we're having a week in.
Well, I think I don't really put too much stock in that, because I think it's crazy. And, maybe there will come a point during this season where it looks a little less crazy, but to call for that 3 games into the season is ridiculous. And of course, everyone's been a little bit disappointed by the results through 3 games at least, but they were close in all of those games and could have very easily won at least 2 of them. So I think that's way premature. And as our friend, here's another Jim Boeheim reference, as he once said, nothing premature is ever good. So to me, calling for the tank after 3 games is way premature. I still feel like pretty good about the team. Obviously, like I said, rebounding is going to be an issue, but we knew that. There are still a lot of positives about this Celtics team. Jalen is playing very well, in my opinion. He it's a shame that they wasted a 41-point game from him against Detroit. But Pritchard is doing a lot of great things. The way he was getting in the paint, playing off 2 feet, which is one of Scal's favorite things. I thought he looked really good, and his rebounding's been pretty good when the Celtics need it. D. White is doing his thing. He just needs to make shots, and that's going to happen. They'll start to fall. And then we've talked about, some of the new guys who we've been encouraged by. The other thing about this, Bobby, is, when the Celtics shoot, like, let's say 20% from 3 in a game, of course people overreact because that's just what we do as fans. And, people are sensitive about the 3-point shooting. But I think if you're being honest, that that's going to come back around, regress to the mean, and they might shoot 40% in the next game. Or just over the course of the season, it'll balance out, and that style will make sense. So if the Celtics, let's say we're shooting 20% through 4 games, you'd say that's unsustainable. It's going to turn around. I felt the same way about the defensive rebounding rate being, 59% through 3 games. I mean, that's just not sustainable. It was going to regress. Now, do I think the Celtics are going to be an above-average rebounding team? No, I don't. I don't think this is going to be like last year where they were 7th in defensive rebounding rate. I think they'll probably be below average, but that doesn't mean the team's going to suck. You can be 20th in rebounding and still be pretty good, and I think that's what's going to happen. So no, I don't put too much stock in the whole tanking thing. People will just say whatever. It's like that's one of my least favorite parts about NBA discourse in the modern, NBA era is it's either you're competing for a championship or you should blow it up. To me, that's just asinine, especially considering what we're expecting from the Celtics next season. Like, is getting a 19-year-old early in the draft really going to change the fortunes for the Celtics in their window, which we think is going to reopen next year? I don't see it.
Yeah, and I think you put it well. if the time comes where you need to do that and things go off the rail, guys get hurt, you're in last place at the deadline, whatever happens that leads you in that direction, you make that decision then. And I think that's where they're at. And they've obviously built the roster in a place where you're not going to contend for a championship this year necessarily. So I think a lot of people look at that and say that's what they're trying to do here. And maybe it is. Like, they've definitely left themselves vulnerable on the boards to a degree that you have to think that's going to lead to a lot of losses throughout the course of this season. But the players, the staff, they're going to try to figure this out and get into the playoffs. And, the Tatum thing, we'll see what ends up happening there. But it hasn't looked pretty so far. I knew they'd get off to a rough start, given the schedule and given all the things we've talked about here. But actually watching it has been a little jarring at times to just see some of the places where they're vulnerable and some of the bad stretches. That second quarter in New York was scary. The worst quarter ever for them. Lost, point differential wise. That was crazy. So it was nice to see them get back on their feet. They needed that so badly. Again, the show we would be doing today would not be pretty if they were 0-4 at this point. The rebounding rate that you mentioned there did move up to 29th ahead of the Pelicans.
Nice.
So, they did beat the worst rebounding team in the league, the new one.
No,
now.
but hey, just hang on a second with some nuance. So the Pelicans were a terrible defensive rebounding team going into that game. Their offensive rebound rate was not bad. I think they were like second in the league in offensive
Sixth,
rebound.
I believe.
Yeah. So, but in terms of total, they were even higher. So I'm still encouraged by how the Celtics protected the boards in that game. And just one other thing on the tanking idea, which again I hate. What does that even look like for Celtics fans who are asking for that? The trade deadline is in February. So do you want them to start trading guys right now? Do you want them to start sitting guys right now? That's
probably would have been sitting Jalen in New Orleans, right?
What's that?
Probably would have been sitting Jalen in New Orleans, who was like questionable hamstring, that kind of thing.
And then he played on a back-to-back. And I would just ask any Celtics fans who are pulling for the tank right now, like, have you been watching this team with the Jays, like in this modern construction? Obviously, Tatum is out indefinitely, but with Brown, is that a guy who wants to sit? Like, what are those conversations going to be like? I think same thing for Derek and certainly for Peyton and Sam and all these guys. So the tanking thing is stupid. I still am pretty high on the team.
Good to see Jalen up to probable. Said he still felt a little tight with the hamstring last night as well, but he pushed through on the back-to-back and got them a win, which was much needed. I want to give a shout-out to our partner here, Prize Picks, who this football season, hard-hitting football season, action's even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. None of my fantasy teams have gone off the rails yet. There's injuries, there's points of frustration, but if yours has, you want to make a new team every week, and Prize Picks is simple to play and do just that. You pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. So do you feel like Barkley's going to get more or less than 1 rushing touchdown? Drake May, I'll throw that name in there, more or less than 200-something passing yards. Whatever takes you have about how guys are going to perform, you can put them to the test here on Prize Picks, the only app that offers stacks, meaning that you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Why not May? Passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns. Follow other players directly in the app and copy their lineups in one quick click, whether it's a friend, celebrity partner, or someone whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create. Injury reboots mean if one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. And how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. So check it all out. Good stuff over there on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So what else stands out to you from the start that we haven't discussed so far?
Well, by the way, I'm going to the Patriots game this week against the Falcons, so it'll be a treat to watch in person. The
5 straight wins
in NFL history. They're good, man. They're good. There's Bill Simmons has this sports cluster theory where, when one team starts playing well in a city, that helps the other teams start playing well because the vibes are higher and the fans are more positive, and hopefully that'll happen with the Celtics. I mean, it didn't really happen for the Patriots when the Celtics were, competing for championships the last couple of years, but maybe it'll happen this year. I'm all in on Drake, man. I love that guy. And we've talked about him on the broadcast pretty much every game because we do promos for for Patriots shows on NBC Sports Boston, and I'm like, Drake May,
It's
man,
so crazy to me because
MVP.
we were at Q's, right, when Luke May was playing and dominating in the ACC. So it still blows my mind that that guy's little brother is saving the Patriots right now.
I know. It's amazing because their dad was a quarterback, I think, at Carolina. So maybe maybe he wanted them all to play football, but it seems like Drake is the best athlete of the bunch. So it's been really fun to watch. As far as the Celtics are concerned, I think the duo of Minot and Garza, or I'm sorry, Minot and Gonzalez has been such a bright spot. Even
What do
though
you
they
think about
lost a few
Gonzalez?
times.
We hit on Minot a little bit, but what's your feeling on Ugo's game as you watch it?
I'm just so pleasantly surprised. I really did not think, at 19 years old he would contribute a lot. But I really feel like it's going to be hard to take him off
He
the floor.
started a game at 19.
Yeah,
3 games into the year. This wasn't tank time starts. This was
This was
New
legit,
York,
man.
Madison Square Garden. Or did he start the Detroit game? I'm mixing them up
Detroit.
now. Detroit,
Yeah.
yep.
But I'm so impressed by him, and he's clearly a pro, like coming from that system in Real Madrid where he'd been for 10 years since he was 9. I'm really happy with how he's looked. And we talked about the rotation. I think it will tighten as the season goes on, but those two guys just have to be in it because we're looking for rebounding, we're looking for energy, and both of them will bring it in terms of Gonzalez and Minot. The other interesting thing that Joe said yesterday in New Orleans that I hadn't really considered yet was the relationship between the Celtics' new defensive identity, where they're pressuring the ball more, trying to force more turnovers, and as a result, fouling more, certainly more than they want to. But that combined with the rebounding struggles and how those two things are related. And it just makes sense geometrically if you think about it. If you're pressuring the perimeter more, your defense is more spread out. It might be harder to grab rebounds. I hadn't really thought about it like that. But Joe also, in classic Joe fashion, said, anytime you make a decision, there's duality. You're choosing to sacrifice something so you can gain something. And I think the Celtics have tilted this way in terms of, avoiding fouls, where the last 2 years their free throw against total has been like the 2 lowest in NBA history, but they didn't force a lot of turnovers. They're swinging that pendulum this year, forcing more turnovers, fouling more. A side effect of that might be the rebounding struggles. So I'm wondering if they're ever going to hit a point where they say this isn't worth it and we need to revert back to a little bit more what we were doing the last couple of years, if that'll help with rebounding.
I think that already happened a little bit last night. He talked about them getting a little more conservative in their coverages down the stretch just to keep guys in front of them. Yeah, I did ask that question going in, and it is interesting to hear him say, like, we have to do this. We have to play this way. Like, that's how we're going to get it done with this roster. And Jalen said something to that effect going into the season, too, because they almost overhauled their whole approach, their whole system, specifically defensively, because they were super conservative in the past. They didn't take risks. They didn't try to force turnovers, jump passing lanes, that kind of stuff. And now it's central to everything that they're doing, and they're doing a great job with it. It is amazing to me that despite all those turnovers that they force, I guess this goes back to the rebounding issue, they have ranked relatively low in transition play, which is a thing we also expected them to be great at, or at least emphasize going into this year, and hasn't quite worked out well. They're still in the 7th percentile of transition offenses now, and obviously they've defensively gotten killed pretty bad there in a couple spots. So controlling the transition game is another area where if you can just do that, it's going to be that much better for them. And the other thing I look at right now that's, talk about comparing them to past versions of themselves, the 3-point shooting, man. And it finally turned around last game in the 4th with Simons and some other guys knocking some shots down. But when they go into that game at 27th from 3, like floating around 30%, they were giving up a lot of threes defensively too. I think 38 through the first 2 games percent for their opponents. That watching them get mashed from 3 and miss a lot of their own attempts so far has been pretty weird to see. And I know Peyton's starting the year slow in that category. White's going through a little bit of a slump right now. Once they hit those at least a league average rate, that'll solve a lot here too, I think. There is some shooting luck that's gone into their start that I've just kept in the back of my head there because they've missed a lot of threes. Now, from the sideline, are you like are you watching a lot of difficult attempts, or guys just getting pressured more out there? Or are they just missing shots?
I think it's a little bit of both. They have not been shooting the ball well. I think especially Derek and Peyton have missed a bunch that you would expect them to make. That's the thing, Bobby, with the 0-3 start. Nobody wants to hear it because the issues are glaring in terms of rebounding. Like, that's number one. But ultimately, and we've heard this before, like, a couple more shots go down and the Celtics win a couple of those games. There is a lot of shooting luck involved there. And that's not letting them off the hook entirely offensively. I don't think it's looked as crisp as it has the last couple of years. And I think their passing numbers tell a lot of that story as well. Where if you combine the low assist numbers with the low transition numbers, it does sort of feel like they're not pushing tempo in the full court and half court as much as we expected. And part of that has to do with not having the ball when you can't rebound. So all these things kind of go hand in hand. But I do think there have been a lot of open looks that they've just missed. Even yesterday, Sam didn't shoot the ball very well against New Orleans. And there are just a lot of points being left out there when you're in the bottom 5 in 3-point percentage. And you talk about 3-point margin, that's where they just buried teams the last couple of years. And so to have that flip, like, obviously they're going to struggle to win games if that's happening.
So we're only 4 games in, and there's still a lot to learn, a lot to see. The Cavs are coming. This is, talk about a test here for Queta and everyone else in that front court. It's Mobley and Allen tomorrow. Is that a national?
No, we have it.
You got it. Nice. That'll be a good one. Cavs have been played good so far, but have a couple guys out. Philly rematch on Friday, which is nice because that was, again, such a gut-wrenching loss on opening night. It's nice you get to play them again in short order. I just call him, man.
He's nasty. He's nasty.
That's why and John said this, our co-host here. He's like, that's why you want to be in the lottery, because he's more of that line of thinking. Of course, Philly didn't intend to tank going in the last year, so they just kind of ended up there with the injuries and all that. But he's been outstanding. And then Saturday, the Steven Adams Şengün thing. So they're going to be tested again on the boards in pretty short order here over the next 3 games, along with the schedule, which, what is it, 5 games in 7 days this week?
Yeah, I didn't realize we still did that in the NBA, to be honest. But we tried to avoid that right out of the chute. The Celtics schedule is brutal. I don't think we have back-to-back days
2
off.
travel back-to-backs too, with the Detroit, New Orleans, Philly, Boston.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before back-to-back days off. I have my handy dandy schedule calendar here.
But the easy games are coming up. Once they get past that stretch, it's Utah, who's actually been pretty decent. And I don't know if any games will necessarily be easy for the Celtics this year, but they've had a tough stretch to start. And starting Monday, you do have Utah, Washington. I think it's tough again with Orlando and then Philly again after that. So, man, they do kind of have to get to mid-November, just staying afloat here before they get to an easier stretch. But nothing's easy anymore is the lesson of all of this. I think every single game for them this year is going to be challenging. Even that game last night was a grind.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the shooting luck that I should have mentioned. The margin of error is just smaller now.
Tiny.
It's just a lot smaller, and the Celtics could get away with missing a bunch of threes and still winning a lot. And now that's just not really the case. You have to really control the margins if you're going to survive doing that. And that's what they did in the Pelicans game. And so, we'll see if they can keep that up. But overall, dude, I'm just really happy and encouraged and relieved from the Pelicans game because, like we talked about, that is a game that even with the scheduling thing, they should win, and they took care of business, which we just hadn't seen them do yet. So I think there's more of that came from.
Last storyline out of this one we'll hit on here. Simons finally gets going. He's had an interesting start to the season with them. Comes off the bench ultimately after a little Pritchard Simons debate in camp there. The defense so far, I thought his opening night defense was super encouraging. He had the chase down on Maxey and a couple other nice help position plays. And I think the obviously flawed defensive field goal stat I saw floating around today on him was like in the 30s.
When it makes the Celtics look great, it's a perfect stat. There's no flaw.
Hey, I'll say this. When a bad defender, theoretically, or that's how he's known, has a great one, when he's in the process of trying to improve it. I do think it says a little something. Now, obviously, there just hasn't been a big sample size there. So he's had good moments on that end, bad moments on that end. Now, offensively is where I'm actually focused here because he's great on that side of the ball. And I feel like this Pelicans game was the first time we've seen him play great over the first 4 here. And, I talked to him after opening night and he said, I'm trying to just fit in around Jalen, Derek, Peyton. Like, those guys are great. Joe said he's been really gracious with how he's been, more passive, I'd say, with how he's approached and moving to an off-ball role. That's how he sees himself here, given all the ball handlers they have. But, man, he's a weapon. And if they're going to be an offensive team, if they're going to improve their offense, which I think actually has been the problem more than the defense to start the year, he's going to be a big part of this thing. And Joe said it's on him. Like, he's got to drop some more stuff to get him involved here. But that's been my biggest takeaway on him so far is he just hasn't been super involved. And we were making some, everyone made their bold predictions going into the year, Drew. A lot of them probably aren't going to happen. But the one I actually think's feasible here, if he does end up getting more involved, is there's a world where he leads this team in scoring. Like, he can be that efficient. He can be that effective of a scorer. And if you find a way to just utilize him more, that's definitely a play. Now, that probably takes another guy getting hurt or something like that, or just something unforeseen there. But there's a path to him having a massive year here in Boston. And I know they're still trying to figure things out, but what have you seen from him so far? Both the slow start and the turnaround here.
Well, I'm curious, what was the worst bold prediction?
Jimmy saying that there'll be a game where the Celtics don't make a 2 this year.
Dude, even the media team made a couple of 2s against the coaches. That's absurd. All right,
I think he thought that they're going to take so many 3s this year that there'll be one game where they take so few they somehow don't make one. I don't think that's going to happen.
That takes the cake for worst one. That's interesting. I thought you were going with not lead the team in scoring, but maybe 6th man of the year potential. Obviously, the team has to win, but if he does come off the bench all season, he's going to be in the running for that. Because if you just think across the league, he's probably the most gifted offensive player and most proven offensive player in the NBA who's consistently coming off the bench. This is a guy who averaged more than 20 over the last 3 years, and I think it's important to be patient with Simons. It's that combination that Jalen talked about a couple games ago about patience and urgency, which seem in conflict with each other. But from the outside perspective, I think we need to be patient with this whole Simons thing. It is a different role for him. The ball was in his hands a ton in Portland. Beside the fact that he hadn't come off the bench in a game since December of 2021, he had started every single game he played the last 3 seasons. I don't even think it's that as much as playing with other ball dominant guys, where it's just going to be new for him. It's going to be an adjustment period, an adjustment for the guys playing with him to having another, guy who can handle the ball a lot and shoot like he does. So I'm just encouraged with how he looked against New Orleans, but I don't think it's like an aha epiphany type moment where now it's going to be smooth sailing. I just feel like it is going to be an adjustment period. He even said that to us at Media Day. He said, he caught himself. He started to say, in Portland, I was kind of forced to play with the ball in my hands. And then he's like, well, not forced, but, I had a lot of opportunity and he had a lot of responsibility there. And now it's different. And you see this in the NBA sometimes where guys who were stars on their team are now playing together, and it's just different, and it takes everyone a while to adjust. It didn't happen with the big 3 Celtics. Obviously, they won a championship in year 1, but generally there's like an adjustment period. So I think as the season goes on, Bobby, he's going to be better and better.
I want to give a quick shout out as well before we get out of here to our friends at Omaha Steaks. Head over there, use the code Patriots at checkout to get $35 off your order as the holidays approach here. Terms apply. Go show them some love. Great sponsors of our Patriots content here over on CLNS Media. So, of course, the code is Patriots. So, as promised, I'm not just going to leave Drew hanging here watching this, but we did say when the Celtics finally won, the beard was going to go. Are you a fan? So you gave your thoughts on the hat. What are your thoughts on the beard?
I think it's time for that to go, Bobby.
I think so too. So I'm glad it got done soon. I thought we might be looking at a couple weeks here where this thing has to stay. It just kind of came in line with the start of the season here. But while I get started on this, give me your thoughts on Cavs Celtics tomorrow, as well as just where the season's going based off the first week here. Like, has it changed your expectations? Has it altered anything about how you saw this year going? And what do you think this year is ultimately going to look like now that we have that first impression?
Well, first of all, Wednesday is a huge opportunity for the team. That's so loud, dude.
We're going mute here.
Jaylen Brown, not the only Celtic cutting some hair today. By the way, Jaylen, just go back to the flat top. That was a great look. I missed that. I want to see that again. But yeah, Wednesday's a great opportunity. The Cavs are obviously really good. Most of that core is the same from the team that won 64 last year. And I think you hit on the biggest thing, which is their massive front court. I was watching the Peacock broadcast with my boy Noah Eagle and Robbie Hummel and Austin Rivers, and yeah, it looks good. And he mentioned that Allen's wingspan is 7'6" and Mobley's is 7'3". They just have a lot of size and a lot of length. So it'll be a challenge. But I think what we saw in New Orleans is encouraging in terms of how the Celtics are going to rebound going forward. In terms of the big picture, I was super optimistic, and obviously I have green tinted glasses on, but I didn't understand people saying the team would be, bad or even sub 500. I just think there's too much talent here and too much winning DNA, and a coach who's not going to accept, standards being lowered. So yeah, obviously you're going to be disappointed when the team starts 0-3, but we talked about some things that I think are correctable, and the biggest thing being shooting luck and the rebounding regressing to a point where, like I said, they're not going to be above average, but not horrible, not worst in the league. Those two things will come together, and I still expect them to be pretty good. So I would not fire up the tank, and I would still not make plans for April. If you're a Celtics fan, I still think they're going to be playing then.
All right, there we go. We got started on it. I'm going to go do this more professionally off the air, but just want to let people know that we got it going here. And
leave it like that.
Yeah, you think this is good?
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to Drew for stopping by. I always appreciate him coming through with some thoughts on the team here. And it's been an interesting start to this season, to say the least, on a number of fronts here. So we'll have it covered tomorrow with post-game coverage, Celtics Cavs. Make sure you tune in here on CLNS. And I'll be back with a new fresh look tomorrow that you'll see on the air. Thanks, Drew. Go, of course. Watch the call with him tomorrow and Scal, of which should be a great game, an interesting test for the Celtics here, matchup-wise, between them and the Cavs. With that, we will get out of here. Again, show some love to Prize Picks. Use the code CLNS over there, as well as Omaha Steaks with the code Patriots. That's a wrap. Peace, Drew. Enjoy your night, and we'll talk to all of you tomorrow. Peace.